matter what industry you're in or what product or service you're selling, it's still all about, you know, the customer. That's where it starts and what those customer needs are and how you're going to fulfill them. And, you know, if you look at things like, you know, the channels that you're going to approach a certain launch or product launch or anything with, they vary by category. They vary by, they vary by category. They vary by different companies within those categories because we all do very different things. But if you always remember the fact that, you know, the foundation principles were all taught, you know, marketing 101, that remains, doesn't matter where you play. So it's been quite easy to the different worlds. And, you know, I worked for the Yellow brand many years ago, came back into Telco, and I'm now with Cell C. A lot of things are still the same, but a lot of things have also changed in the last, say, 10 years or so. Once upon a time, it was all about voice minutes and SMSs. And then boom, the data revolution starts and it's megs and minutes. But minutes are still playing a critical role in that degree. And now we're in this data evolution, and that's where we are now. But again, you know, things may change. Channels have evolved as well. Apps weren't a big thing 10 years ago, but now that's a critical channel in your product delivery. So, you know, it's just adjusting, adopting, and continuously learning more about industries.
Yeah, and the learning never stops, right? We just always learning.
It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, a digital marketing course probably 4 years ago is very different to one that you would do now, because suddenly you've got more platforms to work with. TikTok, that a lot of us are still trying to really get familiar with, wasn't there, 4 years ago, but it's a big deal now.
Yeah, I tried to do a TikTok the other day. This thing is too involved, eh?
No, be careful with that, hey?
Okay, cool. So will you then, so maybe we can start the session now. Will you just share your screen and then we can go through your deck? And then after that, we'll take Q&As.
Okay,
so,
great. We'll do that
over
now.
to you.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'm just going to check. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, I can see your screen.
Wonderful.
Cool.
Great. All right, folks. Well, once again, welcome to all those who started to check in between 8:30 and 8:40. Thank you very much for having me this morning as your guest speaker. Our topic for this morning is going to be around how do we remain customer focused in our brand strategy. Nico, this is a very pertinent topic now more than before because we're in crisis mode. Brands are generally panicking at the moment. And people tend to forget that they're humans behind these brands. Yes, you've got your exco who make business decisions, but the marketers are the people in the room today. What are we doing to save our brands? What are we doing to make sure that our brands are going to survive this wave of change and that our customers will continue to be taken care of by our brands? Our brand survival really depends on the people in this room today. A bit of context, because I also acknowledge the fact that not everyone who's in this meeting today is a marketer or a brand person by trade or by qualification. Therefore, we'll cover a few generic terms just so we're all on the same page as we move on. So generally speaking, you know, a brand is the way that a company or an organization or an individual for that matter is perceived by those who experience it. It's more than simply a name, guys. It's a term, it's a design, it's or a symbol. A brand is the recognizable feeling a product or business evokes. We've all sat in meetings with our business colleagues who believe that brand is just the logo and the color of your organization, and we know it's beyond that. It's important to continuously remind those around us that we're more than just logo creators. And then a good brand has a very clear focus and it knows its target audience. That's all about the customer, that target audience. You might know who you're targeting, but what are you doing about that target market? A good brand has a defined mission, a defined purpose. And the term purpose didn't necessarily come through 20 years ago when the academics were writing books, but it's certainly coming to the fore now. A good brand knows their competition, their USP, and it can identify key values, and it can tell its story and have a good, and have brand identity that reflects its goals. And it does this consistently. Whether it's in panic mode or not, it still remains consistent and true to what its core mission and focus is. And it's really all about that X factor. So what differentiates brands within the same category? It's all about the X factor and how you position your brand. You know, brand creation involves creating key brand elements such as, you know, brand personality, unique visual expression, and positioning that really identifies and differentiates a product from its competitors. We can all be throwing the same thing at the consumers, but what makes them choose yours over the other brand? It is, in fact, that X factor. And then, of course, just a quick brand strategy framework refresher for everyone. These are the elements that obviously form part of the brand strategy framework, where you've got research focusing on things like market insights, which is the one thing that marketers always revert back to when you need to understand what your customer needs are. And of course, strategy, and that's where positioning also falls in. And design, the thing we're notoriously known for, typography, logo creation, and the color of your brand. Then of course the various touch points, you know, and our promotion mix really comes to life in this space because that's what the consumer sees. It's all the brand engagement assets at our disposal. And then of course you then look at physical assets that the brand actually has. And then just a quick term here. So we need to guard against viewing the customers as one homogeneous grouping because our brands are in panic mode. And this is very much where brands end up having the Me Too approach. So COVID-19 has hit us. No one quite detected it, but it's here. What do? We look around and we see what the competitors are doing. And we forget about the customer and we kind of say, customers are all feeling this way at this point in time. There has been no time to really gather the insights, but we need to guard against having this homogeneous approach. Still maintain your segmentation approach if you've got that in your companies already, and identify and hone in on how various stimuli will change your customers during this period and what each segment's going through. What their emotions will be very different when you cut across the different segments, but we'll touch on this a bit later on. And then of course, I've already alluded to the fact that I'm obsessed with Maslow's hierarchy of needs and have been since a very young age. I decided to unpack the hierarchy and almost, because I think we're all too familiar with the pyramid and we look over the pyramid and we don't really digest the different elements within and the different tiers within that pyramid. So it's a slightly different view, but with no disrespect to Mr. Maslow himself, we have not taken anything away from him. I'm just going to unpack this. So obviously COVID-19 hit us. We're in this space that we find ourselves in. Who's our customer? We know who our customers are. We've mapped them. Q4, we're all busy mapping customer insights around who the customer is, but do we understand their changing need states? So where our customers were from a South African context in January this year is very different to where they are in April 2020. Let's just look, and you need to understand, where does your brand play? So what service or product do you offer to the consumers? What have you historically offered? Is it still relevant in today's world? You know, you fast forward to April 2020, we've got COVID-19 crisis. No one's going to work, no one's going to school, but where are you? Where's your brand playing? So you need to map your brand against those Maslow hierarchy of needs tiers. If you look at like the very first one, basic food, water, breathing, sleeping, FMCG, whatever it is you're offering in this space, if your service offering is alcohol, you've been impacted. We're now down to what we've left level 4. We're now at level 5. We're now in level 4 in the disaster management levels that our president alluded to last night. But what does level 4 mean? Is it unlocking your product or service during this period? If you're trading in alcohol, what does that mean for you? If you're in the wine farming business, wine farming, what does that mean to you as well? Is it basic? Is it considered a basic commodity? Has it been unlocked? And are your consumers demanding this during this period? And are you able to fulfill those needs? And then of course, you know, so basic and safety are playing a very huge role at the moment. And I think for us as South Africans, safety has always played a huge role. And I'm talking here about physical security as we go out and about. But now it's really about safety, about my job, employment. Is my job guaranteed? Companies are in crisis mode, not because consumers are no longer demanding their services, but because companies are unable to trade. They're unable to stay afloat. You've seen the huge shift in the airline industry in the last 3 to 4 months. It's real, folks. Our brands are in fact in panic and crisis mode. And what role does the brand manager or the marketing manager play whilst your business is trying to stay afloat? How do you continue to serve the customer until those doors are closed? Hopefully no one's doors will be closed. And then, you know, so if you look at the social tier here, level 3, you know, it's all about friendship, family, love. And in today's age, what do we call it? Connectivity, right? Simply remaining connected to loved ones. And, you know, if you look at the telco category in particular, it's playing a very huge role during this period where people are unable to physically engage with their loved ones, and their, you know, social distancing has become a reality. What role do telcos play in keeping people connected? You've seen a huge rise in the demand for things that help people stay connected. And by this, I'm talking about data. But is that going to be the norm going forward? Or is it only a trend during this March-April period when people actually have that disposable income? What is the state of the category beyond May? If people are retrenched, are those consumers going to continue demanding and prioritizing connectivity? Or will they shift into a completely different need state where it's really all about survival and playing in this tier 1 and 2 of basic needs and safety needs? And then, you know, you look at the esteem pillar here, self-esteem, confidence. This is makeup, right? It is basic grooming, the things that we've taken for granted historically. Hair, nails, the barber. I don't know how many people have actually had any of this done in the last 4 weeks because we've all been in lockdown, where suddenly you'll hear those weaves, ladies, the wigs. No one's buying that anymore. If that was your business, where do you stand now? And then, you know, barbershops, where does that leave you if that was your trade? And it's no longer a key requirement for the consumers. And even if it were, they cannot unlock it. They can't tap into it during the lockdown period. So what does that mean for you as a brand? And then G, self-actualization just seems like a very far-fetched thing at the moment, where here you've got, you know, your wellness and travel. No one's traveling. What does that mean for your brand then, you know? So those are questions one has to ask, and bearing in mind that the consumer's need states will also shift during this time. Like I've already alluded to, one might go from having been very interested in brands that are offering this level 3 cocktail of products and services, and it's just gone down to level 1 and 2 in a flash. And what does that mean for your brand? And can we actually relate to their needs? I have a very different view here, because for the first time in my lifetime, I feel like brands are forced to relate to the consumer needs, because now our consumers are affected by the exact same thing that's affecting our brands, COVID-19. It's impacting entire humanity. It's not a thing for this segment or that segment. It doesn't matter what consumer segment people fall in. And our brands are also being impacted. As much as our consumer segments are going to lose their income, we're also losing revenue. Our doors are shutting down and our consumers are going through the exact same problems. But this is an opportunity for us as marketers and as brand people to really tap into that, the soul of our own brand, and to humanize the experience that the consumers are going to get from us. Because for the first time ever, we understand what they're going through. And you, the brand manager, are as afraid of COVID-19 as your customer is. So let's bring that empathy into how we communicate and engage with our customers. You know, previously we've had all these forums where you sense check, you know, we've got a message that we need to send out to the consumers. Is the messaging right? Come, Hazel, sense check this. Does it sound right? Is it offensive? There's no time for that right now, because guess what? We're all feeling the same pain that the consumers are going through. And you need to capitalize on that as a marketer, as a brand person, because now you do understand their needs, and absolutely there's resonance between brand, the person driving the brand, and the consumer. And then before we move on to the next slide, I know you're probably reading it by now, but it's also important to understand that this isn't going to last forever. So one needs to start to think about what life is going to look like in the next 3 months, in the next 5 months. What does January 2021 actually look like for your brand? And the cocktail of products that you deliver to the market are probably going to shift and change dramatically in line with those shifting needs of your consumers. So don't wait until it's too late. Start that research now, if you're able to, using digital platforms and the like, and understand how your consumers' needs are actually shifting during this period, and how you can gear yourselves for the future and serve them what they need. Don't be stuck in a rut. I mean, face masks weren't a thing until just recently, but I have reason to believe that these will be a thing going forward for at least another 8 months or so. And social distancing will remain, it'll continue, but what it'll mean will probably be quite different. Right now, we're forced to be social distancing. And then once the doors are unlocked and we're able to engage and physically interact again, what is that going to mean? If you're in the hospitality industry, what does that mean for you? You know, the number of tables you have in a restaurant, it goes down to very, you know, right down to those minute things. If you're in the FMCG space and you've got those refrigerators that dispense cool drinks, are you dispensing wet wipes in the process? What is that going to look like? We're all going to become overly OCD. And what is your brand doing to walk that OCD journey with your customer in every way possible? And then now just focusing on the slide that's currently on the screen here, where we define agility as the organizational capacity to effectively detect, assess, and respond to environmental challenges in ways that are very purposeful, decisive, and grounded. My next slide will speak to agility, but I just want to hone in on a few words here. Detect. Was there time to detect COVID-19? It kind of hit us like a brick. It was in Wuhan in December. Before you knew it, it had hit us. And wow, who had time to actually put together any proper risk plans? I was joking with my colleagues the other day and I was saying, I've never seen the risk colleagues as busy as they were during this period. They were on a mission. Their purpose was being fulfilled. And thank God, you know, corporates generally have very sound and solid risk management strategies, but these plans are all coming to the fore right now. How we integrate back into the work environment as we lift and go up the different levels. We're in level 4 now. What does that mean? A third of the employees are allowed to come back into the office. It's our risk people that are obviously working hard to get these plans in place, but no one had time to really detect it. We were thrown into it and brands were forced to be agile. Now, whilst you're trying to be agile and make sure that you respond to your customer needs, it has to be very purposeful. It must be conscious. We often get caught in the wave where it's like, okay, our competitors are doing this, therefore we need to do the same, we must respond in the same manner. No, it must really be about the customer. What do our customers want? We know who our segments are. What does each segment looking for? Back to that homogeneous discussion we had earlier on. It's not just a homogeneous set of customers, it's different segments. And what are they all looking for during this period? Whether it's your youth market with the students going back to school, going back to varsity in the online world, what do they need to be equipped in order for them to achieve their goals and not be set back academically? What does it mean for your high value customer during this time, who's got more than just himself to worry about? He's probably a C-suite individual or a SME a small business owner. What are the things that are important to him during this period? And then you've got your mass. The most hard hit grouping within the economy is our mass market. What are you doing to show up? What is your brand doing to show up for these consumers during this period? What are you doing to support them and to let them know that you get it? You're walking this journey with them. So folks, we need to be agile and we need to guard and warn our own principles in the business. As they say, run, go and do this. You need to pause and say, folks, have we thought about these things? I understand we need to be agile. I'm not going to be the weakest link in the chain. However, it must be purposeful. And during this time, your North Star simply becomes your brand purpose. Otherwise, you'll run in all sorts of directions whilst you're in panic mode. And then the next slide here speaks to all the things that we've all been considering in the last 5 to 6 weeks. The shifts that we've had to go through as marketers, where yes, we're trying to drive the purposeful agility because that's the key to success. But what does that mean for our consumers? And what does it mean for us? We obviously drive our product roadmaps. We all had very cute plans in place, I'm pretty sure of it, some of which won't come to fruition, unfortunately, because of the situation that we find ourselves in. How are you adopting your product mix to the current situation without releasing products into the market that are going to make you seem like you're very aloof to what's happening around you? It's important for you to continuously reflect on that and understand that whatever you put into the market must be relevant during this period and it must resonate. Otherwise, you will be perceived to be quite aloof to what's going on. And then your channel mix. We've all been forced to reflect and shift how we do things during this period. Suddenly, the digital marketing management team is leading our campaigns when they've always been a third cousin, forget second cousin, a third cousin in the mix who get thrown in quite late. Digital marketing is relevant right now, and it will continue to be relevant. It's the shift that's been made now. And one of the key things that we should all be trying to do is make sure that we are equipped and trained to go the marketing route as marketers, because the world is in fact evolving. Radio remains a key channel, a medium for us to engage when you're looking at the media mix within your organization. So digital and radio playing a very critical role during this time. TV is great, but I've been watching a few ads on TV in the last few weeks. Obviously, no one can produce ads during this time because the talent can't go out. You can't actually shoot any ads, but it's all animated and good use of stock videos as well that I've seen. So you'll find the same faces going across brands, which also becomes a risk because you're trying to differentiate your brand and not have the stock images and stock videos that are being used by everybody else in your category. And then how we distribute our products to the market, what channels we're using. A lot of those channels have in fact come to an absolute standstill because we can't access them. So things like our websites, our apps, then come to the forward and become super important, and just making sure that the relevant, updated and relevant information is up on these platforms, because that's where the consumers are going to be going if they need to know more information on about your brand. We can't play dead. You know, we might be in lockdown, but we certainly need to continue to build our brands and to engage with our consumers and just letting them know that we are in fact there for them and that we get them. Then you want to look at the promotion mix as well, how we land our product and services in the market. You understand your channels, you understand what the products are, but how you're going to engage and interact with that consumer to ensure that they know about what you're putting out there. We've already covered some of that, so I shan't go into it in the interest of time. And then pricing. Often pricing doesn't necessarily sit within marketing, but the marketers do influence the pricing strategy within the business. And it's important to understand what your consumers are able to part with from a disposable income perspective. And if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where your business is playing within those tiers on Maslow's pyramid will determine in fact what pricing you can demand during this time and beyond. And you might not need to adjust your pricing down because suddenly it's no longer a key commodity. It's not plugging into that level 1 and level 2 of basic and safety needs. Your luxurious items might need to be sold at cost price just so you can actually break even during this period and beyond. So one needs to adopt and almost look at all of these marketing 4 Ps, the mix, right? The marketing mix, and understand what that means back to the consumer. And the North Star here should be your brand purpose and the consumer. If those two are aligned and if those two are at the table, every time you have a discussion in the business, you're more than likely going to win this and get through this horrendous period. And then it's all about driving emotional connections in a very authentic manner. We touched on this already. The brand manager is impacted, your brand is impacted, your exco is impacted. It's easy to bring those emotions in. It's not a force fit anymore, folks. Make sure you're driving the emotional connections. Don't for a second ever appear to be aloof. Consumers will see right through you. And then that's it. And we can open it up. But before we open it up, Nico, I just want to have a few parting words here where
okay.
We're in this thing together. May we do good together. And you might be a product marketing manager, then you've got your CSI arm that's doing other things. This is the time to bring all of that together. Marketing, brand engagement, CSR within that mix needs to all come together and redirect efforts so that we can all do good. Your sponsorship person in the business has assets and access to the talent that you sponsor. For example, in our space, we've got Mapimpi, Lucanio, Cohen from the Sharks. What are we doing to bring them to life during this period and make them relevant away from the field where we know them, the rugby field where we've become quite familiar with them? So work together with the CSI teams to make sure that you in fact drive the brand emotional connections you're trying to drive. But thank you very much for your time. I'll hand over back to you, Nico.
Awesome. That was very, very insightful. Thank you so much. So I've got so the first question is just from Teboho from Bayport. And his question is more around, how do you separate the brand from the business? So take, for example, an example is SAA, where the business is going through challenges, and obviously you still need the brand to speak to the consumer. Do you then still speak on the brand in terms of, hey, come fly with SAA? Or do you say, listen, we know that we're going through stuff, but still trust us, come fly with us? So yeah, that's the question.
I think for me, you need to separate the two and remember that as long as your doors are open, you're still a going concern. Doesn't matter what financial turmoil your business might be going through. As long as your brand is a going concern, it's your mandate as a brand manager to continue to drive the emotional connections with the consumer. And you also can't be aloof to what you're going through as a business, right? Consumers know that SAA is in fact in extreme trouble, much like many brands out there, if I may add. But this is an opportunity where you can actually get the consumer to be on your side. And, you know, some doors will be shut down. Companies will be shut down during this period. How do you say goodbye to consumers in a memorable way? Perhaps it's time for SAA to have a journey down memory lane campaign at this time, where they take us from the time when they started. Remember, South African Airways rebranded at the height of our democracy in 1994. I'm not sure about the exact timelines, but it was a different brand before then. They rebranded to what they are currently. Take us on that journey. Show us the different aircraft you've had in the last 30, 40 years, and take us on the journey, the way that your staff have evolved and changed, how they look. You now have majority African Black cabin crew and pilots. You know, speak to Chile, one of the first Black pilots in the country. Take us on an emotional journey, SAA. That would be my appeal, is take the consumers on an emotional journey. If you do say goodbye, do it in a classic manner.
Yeah, make us cry a bit.
Make us cry in the process. Don't just shut your doors and boom, it's gone.
Yeah.
But it's the job of us as brand managers to be able to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then the second question is from Malusi Shozi. So his question is, should brand purpose be brand-led or customer-led? And what does this mean for the brand story?
So, I mean, brand purpose isn't something you dream up and thumbsuck. You do that once you already understand what your business strategy is and you understand your positioning and you've already mapped insights. If you go back to our brand strategy framework, it started with research, the market insights. Who is your customer? Once you know your customer, it's easy for you to then determine and define your positioning and what the brand strategy is going to be. So it actually does in fact start with the customer, but the two walk hand in hand. Your brand purpose comes after you've identified who your customer is, and it will always be customer-led. Cool.
All right, this is quite, so this is an essential question. It's someone from the essential services industry. So he says, so this is Musa Jakuja. So he says, hi, I'm in the catering business. And how would you suggest that I keep relevant at this time?
Catering business. So I think for me, what I've seen in my own space, and I'm going to personalize it here, is that the people I know who are in the event management and catering business, it's all about remaining top of mind during this period. You may not be able to deliver the actual service, but let people know that you do have the service and what you actually offer. When the gates are unlocked, you are in fact top of mind. So it's all about maintaining that top of mind awareness. You haven't done. You're still a going concern. You haven't locked your doors. You haven't sold your assets and your stock and everything. You're a going concern until that day that you lock your doors. Remain top of mind during this period. I mean, I've seen people even offering, recipes. You're not your trade secrets. You know, your Coke mix. You're not going to give away your trade secrets, but you can remain. People need to remain healthy during this period. Have a webinar and show us how to make our own salad. We're not taking anything from you, but somehow the salads that professional people make are very different to the ones that we make in our own homes. Take us through that journey. Some are coming up on, are being featured on various TV platforms. Not everyone can get on TV. Not everyone's got a publicist who's wide awake during this time, but you certainly have things like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, where you're able to drive your own narrative and be your own marketing person and just drive that.
Sure, thank you. And then this one is from Koto. It's more a comment. His comment is saying, I think this period in our lives has disrupted why our business exists in the first place. As much as it's a pain, there is opportunity for marketers, so hang in there. Okay. Cool.
Absolutely, so, those are very pertinent words during this time.
Yeah, and then I have another one from Wallace. So he's saying, morning, thank you for your insights and for reminding us that the customer indeed comes first. What approach do you think most South African brands should take at this time?
I think we've covered that in some of the slides, but it's really about, as much as you're in panic mode, find that North Star, being your brand purpose and what the customer needs are, and shift and adjust and adopt accordingly. Don't be stuck in what you're doing in January because your product roadmap says X, you're going to stick with that. Your strategy is this. We're shifting completely. Strategy is just something on paper right now. We are shifting the game, shift with the consumer. That's the advice I'd give.
Awesome. All right, cool. The next one, Natasha Madunda. She says, with the ever-changing consumer behavior, especially with how consumers are using data and digital platforms, entertainment still plays a factor. How is the telecoms industry evolving or migrating towards being a content service provider in order to provide more reasons for people to consume data?
I mean, we've had our own, we've taken a stab within this space as a brand before, and we actually fully understand how that content space works. But you also need to understand that this is probably not the right time to be rolling out a new proposition when when you're not able to really apply your entire promotion mix, for lack of a better term, and you can't quite pull all the levers in the channels that you're going to use to deliver in any case. But data is going to be critical, and people require connectivity in order for them to be able to consume entertainment on whatever platform. I don't even have to mention them because you all know what those entertainment platforms are, but people need fiber during this time. People need data-rich propositions from telcos. And if you look about the last 4 to 5 weeks, you'll see that as Cell C, we've really tried to play in this realm because we've understood what people are consuming their data for, whether it's working from home, simple entertainment, or trying to keep the kids educated through online learning. We all-in-one bundles that we launched on March 20th. And these are very data-rich propositions where we're doubling the data. I'm not going to go into what the price points are, but I would love to.
Sure.
But yeah, so telcos are responding by offering data-rich propositions. Visit cellc.co.za, download our app.
And that is a plug.
Follow us. Come on, guys, you would do that too, right?
Yeah, it's a brand plug. So I think you just answered Nomzamo Lucy's question, because he asked, what are you doing to show that you're in this together with the consumer? So I think that was essentially the answer, right? Stuff. And then this one is from Simpiwe Lungwana. He says, hi, post-COVID-19, do you think organizations will focus on marketing and opening up budgets, or do you feel the organizations will hold back until they find their footing?
That's really in your own hands. It's in our hands as marketers. Have we shown up during this period? Have you proved to your principals why your area is of importance during this period? It's really up to us. This is the time where you can prove marketing's worth, the ability to stay connected and engage your consumers, the ability to be relevant during this time. I think marketers need to guide the business during this period. We absolutely need to drive that narrative during this period.
Yeah. And there's never been more time where marketing needs to be constantly engaging with consumers than right now.
Constantly, if you look at the social media platforms, what is your content plan as a brand?
Yeah.
You can't play dead. Like I said, you can't play dead because your doors are physically shut. You have to remain, that top of mind awareness must remain, and you must show up in a big way. I can frivolize it, and something as simple as makeup brands, for example. Where are they during this time? No one's really applying makeup because they're at home wearing sweatpants with real faces. But what role are those brands playing during this time? Makeup brushes are drying because no one's actually touched them in the last 4 or 5 weeks. What tutorials are they putting up online? You look at guys like Lungi Ngidi, our cricketer, the fitness routine. Cricket's not on right now, but he's got a massive following that is acquired during this period. It's all about being relevant, really. Give the right content, feed the right content, change your content plan. Whatever your content plan was in Feb, change it.
Yeah, it's no longer relevant.
Be relevant, resonate, connect.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we've got 2 more minutes to go. I'll just take one more. Actually, I'm going to do this. So we've been doing a poll as we were speaking. So I'm just going to share the results here.
Geez, Nico.
Yeah, so just results from the poll. The first question was, do you want us to email you the presentation? So everybody wants a copy of the presentation. They're crying. The second is the content insightful. So yeah, everybody's like loving the content. First time joining Marketing Fridays, I see that we have 80% who's joining us for the first time. No, 80%. Is this your first time?
Yeah.
No, okay, I've switched that. I think it's 2080, so I'll see which.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And then is this a session you would recommend to other marketing professionals or colleagues? And everybody's saying, listen, we want more, so 100%. So yeah, so I've just shared the poll results with everyone. Okay, so I'll take one more here from, okay, so wait, so I've got, so Natasha is saying we must share your handles. So I'll share your social handles so people can engage with you. And then Katleho Mabusela here says, from an entrepreneurial perspective, how does one manage the relationship between my personal brand that is involved in multiple businesses and a particular brand? So sounds a bit open-ended, but yeah, so that's the question.
True, and I think so. I'm just trying to decipher that and unpack that question, because you obviously have your maybe you're an influencer or a socialite, to what the right term is anymore, but you also represent a brand. And if your influencer socialite name is different to your brand name, it's a bit easier to separate the two. But bearing in mind you're still the same human, and people will be able to cut across and see right through you in any case. So whatever you do, whatever the left arm does, the right arm also knows, and the two are connected. So you need to somehow remain balanced in your approach. You can't have different views on the left and different views on the right. The two are one after all. So even though you've got two separate brands that you're pushing, you're still the same individual. It's very different to, say, Unilever, and they've got different brand categories. You're the human being in this case. So you need to be, if you're authentic and true to yourself, there must be some synergies between left and right.
Okay, cool. And then, okay, this one is interesting. It's from Anonymous. So his or her question is, how does a marketing startup survive in this climate? So I was busy starting up my marketing agency. And, you know, in my second day of starting, they said, COVID-19, lockdown. And I'm like, flip. Obviously, people are not taking my meetings because everybody's at home and they're busy trying to figure things out. So how do I survive in this climate?
Well, I think there's a perfect opportunity here where you actually analyze what brands are doing wrong, and you approach them with a plan to say, hey, knock, brand X, SAA, for example, this is what we would like to, this is what the consumers are probably wanting to see during this time. You run a quick Twitter poll or whatever the case is. These things are now free, or Survey Monkey, and you get the info. You approach those brands and you show them what you could do for them during this time. I think content is key. Content is king. It always has been, but more so now than ever. People have a lot of disposable time to spend on social media platforms. What are brands feeding? If you analyze that, find the gap, approach the brand with a solution, they're more than likely going to engage you. You might not get your vendor forms done very quickly, but they will absolutely take you seriously.
Yeah, and I guess also the saying is still true that nobody says no to a really good idea.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, cool. So that's it. It's 9:15, so we are finishing the webinar. Just to thank you so much for coming and joining us through this informative session today. We really appreciate it, Hazel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the participants who dialed in. Thank you for sacrificing your Friday morning to be with us. Thank you. Nicola Nell, I see you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for using your data on us and your Wi-Fi and your fiber and all that stuff. So I will be sharing the presentation with everyone who was on the webinar. So I'll send an email with that, and then I'll share your social details in terms of if people want to connect with you on LinkedIn and all that stuff.
Thanks, Tatiana. I just had to throw that in.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right, cool.
Cheers, everybody.
All right, cheers.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, bye-bye. Cool. Bye-bye, everyone. Okay, so let's do this. End meeting. End. Okay, if you're still here, we're ending. Bye-bye. Cheers. Cool. Cheers. I see you going. Cheers. Okay, bye-bye.